Happy Tuesday. Everyone be on their best behavior. So with funny story, so we upgraded Zoom. We got a new Zoom account, okay? And Zoom comes with 1 GB of memory to store your recordings too. Okay, 1 GB is about 2 of our calls because we're already out of storage. So I can record it to my computer, which is what I'm doing right now, and then I will upload it to my Google Drive. And Google Drive has 30 GB for free, and then you can get an additional 100 GB for $1, where Zoom charges you $40 a month for 100 GB. I think Zoom is a little overpriced, but whatever. $40 versus $1. So from now on, when I send you guys the recordings, there's not going to be a password. It's just going to download the video directly to your phone or your computer or whatever the case may be. That video will be right there, or not download it, but it'll pull up like a URL, like a web page, and you'll watch the video through there. So that's kind of the new update on the future of recordings. It won't be password protected, but it will be, you have to have the link to be able to view it, right? So if you share the link with someone, should be okay. They should be able to watch it. All right. So pretty cool. The only not cool thing is I can't see how many people are viewing it, which Zoom was telling me, how many people are watching the recordings, which is pretty cool. But whatever. All righty. So we're going to dive into some questions. We have a couple questions in the Facebook group, and then we're going to dive into some fads or some myths. Super cool. I have a section in my textbook with just all types of exercise and nutrition myths. And we are going to kind of tackle those because so funny. This textbook is pretty old. This is one of my certification textbooks, the Fitness Complete Guide. I got this certification over 10 years ago. And these myths are still lingering today, 10 years later. Super funny. I just was flipping through a book today. I was with Deidre, and she was like, are you just flipping through a book to find out what to talk about? And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much what I do. And so it's super cool that I found this section of the book because, again, these myths and these fads still exist today, and this book is old, all righty? So we'll talk a little bit about that. So first question, comment, or concern was about CLA and coffee. And so, what's the difference between the two? Should we do one versus the other? Should we do neither of them? What are the benefits? There's a new product going around, the new greatest thing since sliced bread, to target all the fat loss and just take this fancy pill or this fancy oil or this fancy supplement. And it had CLA in it and all the beautiful benefits of CLA and how it helps the body burn fat, metabolize fat, shrink fat cells. And this CLA was like this super cool new thing that no one had ever heard of. CLA has been around for decades, and so it's not new, it's not fancy. And so I made a post about it earlier today. And so CLA is conjugated linoleic acid. Does it help with fat metabolism? Absolutely, because it is a fat, okay? Does it help with shrinking fat cells? No. You have to be in a caloric deficit to shrink fat cells, right? And so you can't really stuff your face with however many calories you want to stuff them with and then expect some sort of fatty acid to just start shrinking things, right? It doesn't work that way. Everything has to do with energy balance and energy dynamic. And so remember, no energy is created nor destroyed. It's just transferred one way or another. So if we're eating calories, which is our energy, we either have to use it with physical activity or we have to store it, all right? That's the only two options we really have. So thinking that we can eat whatever calories we want and take some pill, which also has calories because it's a fatty acid, and it's just going to magically start shrinking fat cells. It doesn't work that way. All righty. Now, if we were doing, remember the pyramid of importance of nutrition, at the very bottom is the most important. It's the biggest section of the pyramid. It's calories in versus calories out. The next thing up is going to be macros. So that's going to be our proteins, carbs, and our fats. How many, how often, things like that. The next thing up is going to be micronutrients. That's going to be your vitamins and minerals and water. So that's going to be the top 3 most important things that we need no matter what our goal is. Gain weight, lose weight, build muscle, lose fat, perform better, perform worse, right? Those 3 things are making up the base of our pyramid. Then we get into nutrient timing, which is when am I eating said calories? When am I eating said macros? When am I eating said micros? Am I eating them earlier in the day, around my workout, before I go to bed, in the middle of the night? All of those things are tips and tools and tricks that we can do to get more progress or less progress or feel differently. And then at the very top is supplements, which is where CLA is. CLA is a supplement. And so unless we are doing everything beneath that perfectly, CLA will not provide any additional benefits that can override something we are not doing below that. Okay, so remember, thinking that we're not hitting our macros every day, we're not hitting our calories every day, we're not getting our vitamins and nutrients in, we're not eating a bunch of healthy fruits and vegetables and complex foods, thinking that we can just throw CLA in there or throw a multivitamin in there or throw a collagen peptide in there and it's going to outweigh those things that we're not doing is not the case. Okay, so that is why a lot of people sign up with us and they ask, hey, can I keep taking this? Can I keep taking that? Can I keep taking this? Can I keep taking that? Whatever you're taking, I normally just tell you, sure, but you don't need it. That's probably my answer to all of you guys. Hey, I'm taking this. Can I still take it? Sure, but you don't need it. Hey, I'm taking that. Can I still take that? Sure, but you don't need it, right? I'm not here to try to convince you of one way or the other. I'm not trying to take you away from what you've been doing for years and years and years and say you've been doing it wrong. That's just not the way that we do business. I'm just here to let you know, like, hey, do your thing. If you want to do it, I'm just letting you know you're probably wasting your money. And so, but if you want to keep doing it, and if it makes you feel better, we know that the placebo effect is a real thing. And so if the placebo effect is working for you and you're feeling good, then keep on doing your thing. I don't want to get in the middle of that. All righty. So CLA, does it help? Could it help? Absolutely. If we're doing everything below the supplements on that pyramid of importance perfectly. Okay. If we're not, CLA is not going to have any benefit, or it might have a tiny bit of a benefit, but not enough for it to be worth how expensive it is. And especially how these MLM companies and all these crazy supplement companies are marking it up. It's not worth it. All righty. So therefore, you know, CLA versus coffee, right? We know black coffee, green tea, matcha powder, things like that. All of that has fat burning effects. All of it has quote unquote metabolism boosting effects. And so should we do one versus the other? I don't know. It depends on what sits well with you. I know every time I drink coffee, I go straight to the bathroom and it's not a good thing, right? And so coffee is not my, supplement of choice, and really neither is CLA. So if I had to choose one, I would probably go a green tea route because it just sits well with me. It sits better in my belly. And so, we have to take that into consideration too. I can't tell you, hey, drink black coffee every morning the first time you wake up and it makes you sick to your stomach and it sends you to the bathroom like it sends it to me. You're not gonna have a very good relationship with black coffee. So now, if we are dumping our coffee with a bunch of creamers and a bunch of sugars, then we're completely negating the effects of what plain black coffee has to offer. And so that's another thing to consider. Same thing with green tea. If we're having sweet green tea and it's loaded up with sugars and stuff like that, we're probably negating the effects that plain green tea or unsweetened green tea has to offer. So make sure that even if we are doing these things, we're not adding external things that are going to outweigh the benefits of their natural self, right? So natural coffee, natural green tea, and things like that, okay? So remember, I know we all have our supplements that we like, and we all have our supplements that we, tend to think are helping us in one way or another. Totally okay. But if we're not doing everything beneath that thing in the food pyramid, if we're not doing our calories daily, our macros daily, our micros daily, and our food timing, our nutrient timing, if we don't have all of that down to, a pretty consistent routine and schedule, no supplement is going to outweigh where we're lagging down below. Okay, it's just not possible. They're not powerful enough. All righty. If they are powerful enough, they're called steroids, and those are illegal. All right. So just let y'all know. If you didn't know that steroids were illegal, I'll be the first one to let you know they're illegal. All right. And so moving right along to Ms. Dion's question, she said, hey, a long time ago, we had a call, and I said, if we were going to sub something out, one time, make sure we sub it out the entire time on our plan. So for example, if she didn't want to do her almonds for the next 4 weeks, does she have to sub it out for peanut butter, right? So if she wanted to sub out almonds one time for peanut butter, should we do it the entire time for peanut butter? My answer is going to be yes. If you're going to make a substitution, especially with something very different like almonds, natural raw almonds versus a processed peanut butter, sub it out the entire 4 weeks. Couple reasons. One, the calories and the macros aren't perfect between our substitutions. Okay, so going from chicken to shrimp, or going from rice to potatoes, or potatoes to beans, or what, peanut butter to almonds, or avocado to almonds, whatever the case may be, it's not 100% perfect substitution. We know that. So if we do it more consistently, aka for the entire program, we'll be able to see the benefits, and you can communicate that to us, saying, hey, maybe our progress wasn't there, wasn't there as much as we thought it should be, but I was subbing out my almonds for peanut butter, and peanut butter is a little bit higher in sugars. It's a lot higher in sugar, and it's a little bit higher in calories, right? So make sure that we try to be as consistent as possible due to that reason, due to the fact that they're not 100% a perfect substitution, but then also to see how your body reacts to it. So a lot of times, we'll complain about things like bloating, or I'm tired, or I don't have, maybe I'm losing my appetite, or I have an increased appetite, whatever the case may be. Some of that can be due to our food choices, right? And so I would love for you to sit with your foods as consistently and as long as possible, so we can really figure out what's helping us and what's hurting us, right? So I want you to know that, like, let's say, we sub it out for peanut butter and we're just eating peanut butter, but all of a sudden we're a lot more hungry. We're having sugar cravings. We're having all these other things that we normally didn't have with our almonds, right? And so it's probably because the peanut butter is processed. It's not as complex, and it's higher in sugar. That could be causing those issues. But if we only did it one day and we went right back to almonds, we might not be able to figure out or distinguish, between the two. So sit with your substitutions a little bit longer than a day, or every once in a while, so we can actually tell the difference on how you feel. Because remember, when we start talking about long-term health and long-term benefits and how we are going to do this forever, you need to know what works well for you and your body, not us. I don't need to know what works well for you. You do, because the goal is for you to branch away and spread your wings and fly one day, and know all the things you need to know, and not let a coach or not let a trainer come tell you that you have to eat broccoli because it's good for you, when you know that broccoli doesn't do well for your belly, or tell you, hey, you have to eat peanut butter because you're bulking, or whatever the case may be. And you know that peanut butter causes you to eat more food, cause cravings, you're hungry more often, things like that. You guys need to know that. And so I would love for you to sit with your substitutions a little bit longer, maybe not the entire 4 weeks, right? I see Natasha down there asking questions, but not just day on and then, go back normally, and then another day on and go back normal. Sit with them for a little bit and see how your body reacts. That is the best piece of advice that I can do, is, hey, stick with something pretty consistently, learn about it, see how your body's reacting to it, and then make a decision on whether you want to keep it or whether you want to go back to the normal thing that's on your meal plan. And almonds and peanut butter was a great example, because they are vastly different, from a natural raw form of an almond to a processed sugary version of a peanut butter. Okay, so keep that in mind. It's a great example. And then again, not to even talk about how they're different in calories and in macros, but they're similar, but they're not the same. They're not 100%. Okay. So Natasha asked, so we can't flip that between cheese and eggs, right? So 1 ounce of cheese is roughly the same macros as 1 whole egg. Again, and it's another good example, because one's an egg and one is dairy, right? And so we want to make sure that we try to figure out, what does my body do better with? Does my body do better with dairy? Does my body do worse with dairy? Am I more hungry when I do more dairy, or am I more hungry when I do eggs, right? And we want to learn about that, because again, in the future, if we're hungry, maybe we know, like, hey, I'm not going to have cheese because I'm more hungry when I have my cheese. I'm going to stick to my eggs because it keeps me fuller longer. That would be a great thing. Or, hey, I noticed that I'm a little bit bloated. I'm a little bit stopped up. I haven't had a bowel movement in a while. Maybe it's because I've been subbing my egg or 2 eggs for some cheese. maybe I need to pull back on the cheese and go back to my eggs, right? So just sit with it for a little while, let your body adjust and react for a couple of weeks, learn about it and kind of think about kind of what's been going on, and then see if we can either stick to that change forever, or do we need to go back to kind of what we were doing before or what was originally on your meal plan? And so that's kind of my best thing is for you to learn about you. You learn about you. I know you want us as coaches or as a company to have all the answers, and you want to, trust the big flashy labels and all these claims that we're throwing out there. But everybody's different. And that's the beauty behind all of this. And I want you to know that, what works well for you and what works really good for you might not work even for a family member, even for someone who you're related to. That's how vastly different we are. Okay. So just try to stay a little bit more consistent. Yeah. So so for a convenience thing, right, it's, kind of completely different. So Natasha said, well, when I don't have time to cook eggs, cheese is an easy sub because I can just kind of grab and go. From a convenience thing, totally different story. I would much rather you hit your macros, hit your calories by grabbing an easy sub. But if we have the time to do everything according to plan, I would love for you to stick with those substitutions a little bit longer, a little bit more consistently to learn about your body. Okay. So great question there. And I still stay true to my answer, Dion. Stick with it for as long as you can. So that was surprised you remember that. That was probably years ago. That's super funny. All right, let's dive into some of these myths. Most of it is with exercise. So kind of shifting gears from nutrition to exercise. And we're going to go through a couple, and I'm going to ask the question first of what do you guys think? And so again, if you're available to type or maybe unmute yourself, I would love for you to put your answer in the chat box or shout it out respectfully. And so the first one, I can't tell you it's a myth. I'm going to reword it. All righty. So fad, maybe number one. Now, again, all these things, it's so funny. All these things still apply today. This textbook is at least 10 years old. So aerobic exercise, so that's cardio. Cardio is the only exercise you need to effectively control your weight. Cardio is the only exercise you need to effectively. Y'all yelling at me. Stop yelling. I love it.
Sorry.
Oh, I love it. Oh, you guys are so.
You said to yell it out.
You guys are so responsive. I love it. Everyone's saying false. I love it. Perfect. Yeah, right. And so it's funny that, when people are new to exercise and when they're new to the health journey, cardio is the thing they go to. Like they just say, I got to do cardio. It's safe. It's easy-ish, I think, right? And so, but it's not the cure-all. So cardio doesn't actually burn that many calories unless you're doing it for a really long time, hours and hours and hours. And so we know that we need to do some strength training as well. All right. We know that we cannot, and there's a quote that says you can't walk your way to weight loss, right? It's very, very hard. And so Natasha says her doctor told her to walk. So she got a new doctor. Yeah. And so, we know that, it's a very slow way to do it. Okay. So if we want to control our weight, we need to throw in some strength training. And it's also going to help us preserve muscle mass. And remember that muscle mass plays a role in our metabolism. And so if we can strength train, build muscle, we can boost our metabolism essentially, and we can burn more calories day in and day out. Whereas if we just did cardio, and we were this, no muscle mass person, our metabolism would slow down. Okay. Not only does it slow down when we lose weight, but it's really slowing down because we don't have any muscle mass. So if you are not strength training, you can really do some good if you add in some strength training. All righty. No matter what it is, lift up some weights, do some body weight squats, push-ups, sit-ups, things like that. Anything to kind of trigger those muscles in an anaerobic way, which is a non-cardio version. And you'll see added benefits, especially long-term. Remember, this is a forever thing. Could we add more cardio here and there to maybe lose a little bit more fat? Sure, but we would never let it hurt our strength training routine. All righty, so keep that in mind. All right. Number two. That's a good one. Aerobic exercise. So going back to cardio. Cardio causes your resting metabolic rate to stay elevated for an extended period of time after the workout. So what that means is, hey, I just did, let's say I did 30 minutes on the treadmill. Does my metabolism stay high when I stop, when I get off of the treadmill? Does my metabolism stay high? Yes or no, true or false? Ooh, ooh.
False.
False. We got some truths. We got some truths in the chats. We got some falses. I hear some falses. Uh-oh, we're a little split decision. We got another false in the chat. Ooh, it's getting frisky. It's getting
Froze up. I didn't hear it.
Okay, I said cardio exercises causes your resting metabolic rate to stay elevated for an extended period of time after the workout. So again, when you get off of the treadmill, does your metabolism stay at that accelerated rate when you were on the treadmill, or does it stop? True or false?
Maybe it's different for each person.
Maybe it's different for each person. Maybe sometimes true, maybe sometimes false. I like that. That could be a good answer. I like that. That's a good mentality to go into a lot of things, is maybe it's different for each person. All right, so it is false. It's false. So aerobic training. So we have something called EPOC. I'm going to type it in the chat if you're in the chat. EPOC, EPOC. It stands for excess post-oxygen consumption. So excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. Okay, that's what EPOC stands for. EPOC is highest with very, very intense exercise, strength training, or like interval training and HIIT training, okay? So when we talk about cardio, again, that's why I kind of use the treadmill as an example. If we were just walking, if we were doing the stair climber or something that's not very intense, right? We were gonna kind of sit there for 20, 30 minutes at this constant pace. That is false, okay? So meaning what happens is if we're burning calories at an accelerated rate due to walking or due to being on the Stairmaster or maybe riding our bikes or whatever the case may be, if we are just at a moderate intensity for a long period of time, when we stop that accelerated caloric burn goes back down to our normal metabolism, right? Now with EPOC, with higher intensity exercise, strength training, interval training, circuit training, things like that, your EPOC stays up. So excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. What that means is, hey, my heart rate is still high. I'm still huffing and puffing for minutes and minutes and minutes after I'm already done with the workout, right? So think about the last time you did like sprints, right? Boom, we're doing sprints. How long did it take for your heart rate to come back down, for you to stop sweating, for your respirations to come back down, right? For you to just breathe normally again, right? And so when we talk about caloric burn, when we talk about how are we going to burn more calories, I always tell people to pay attention to how you're breathing. If you are not huffing and puffing, gasping for air, we're probably not burning that many calories. If you can have a conversation with someone, we're probably not burning that many calories. When we exercise harder and harder and harder at a higher intensity, that breathing is going to stay elevated for a little bit after we get done exercising. So we know that strength training and high intensity interval training is the best way to maximize EPOC. And that is going to keep our metabolism elevated after we're done exercising, okay? So going back to, I forget if it was Melanie or Megan, whoever said both, right? Whoever said it depends on the person, right? It does, because me walking on a treadmill at 3 miles an hour and someone who's never worked out before, who's walking on a treadmill at 3 miles an hour, they might be at a higher intensity than I am. Right? And so this might cause them to have some EPOC because it's so extreme compared to them never doing it before, right? And so maybe we're doing Camp Gladiator, right? Brett is over there doing Camp Gladiator like 17 times a week. I do Camp Gladiator twice a year. So if I was to work out with Brett doing the same exact workout, the same exact routine, the same exact weights, I might be dying and Brett might be chilling. Right? So his EPOC is going to be very different than mine because of how he's in shape and how his body is trained, okay? So again, it's an intensity thing, not necessarily a type. thing, right? So it's not necessarily the treadmill or the Stairmaster or CG or boot camps or interval training. It's the type and how is and the intensity of that. What are we doing during it, right? So again, if maybe you guys are doing boot camps all the time, and then I bring you to the gym and we do strength training, maybe that's really intense for you because you're not used to it. So your EPOC would be a lot higher than mine because I'm used to strength training. And if we flip-flop, roles were reversed, my EPOC would be really high in a boot camp setting because I don't really do that very often, right? So again, does it depend on the person? Absolutely. It depends on what you're used to. It depends on what kind of intensities you're used to. And so I always get people, who will come out to Camp Gladiator. They'll tell me, oh, I'm a runner, I do marathons, or I'm a walker, I'm a hiker, I do all this stuff. And I say, cool, this is very different, right? Very, very different. And the same thing goes, like, you can't do Camp Gladiator and then go run a marathon. It's two different things. And so our EPOC will be different. The way that our body adapts to that intensity will be very different as well. So again, going back to it could depend on the person. Absolutely. But we know that it's directly tied to an intensity. And so that's why your rate of perceived exertion is very important. So your RPE scale, put that in the chat box. And so your RPE scale is a 0 to a 10, or a 1 to a 10, I guess. A 1 is like me sitting here talking to you, even though I sound like I'm out of breath because I don't know how to breathe and talk at the same time. Very hard concept. I don't know. But, that'd be a 1. And then me going to do sprints would be a 10, right? I can't talk to you while I'm sprinting because I'm working so hard. The closer we get to a 10, the more EPOC we will have, okay? But when someone says aerobic exercise, we're thinking of long duration, low intensity cardio. That's what aerobic exercise is, all righty? That was a flip-flopper, love it. Perfect, so moving on to number three. I kind of gave away the answer if you were listening very closely in that last answer, but number 3 is the more you sweat while exercising, the more body fat you'll lose. True or false? The more sweat you sweat while exercising, the more body fat you'll lose. True or false? Is sweat? Oh, love it, Megan. I love it. We have some falses in the chat box. So is sweat directly correlated to how many calories we're burning, how much weight we're losing, how much fat we're losing? Is it directly correlated to that? Hydration plays a role, absolutely. If you're dehydrated, guess what? You're probably not going to sweat very well. Just letting you know. What about if we're in humid climates? What about a humid climate versus a non-humid climate versus a dry climate? Does that play a role in our sweating? Absolutely. What about, did you know that the more healthy and active you are, the bigger your sweat glands become? Your sweat glands can hypertrophy, meaning your sweat glands can get bigger because your body will get better at cooling itself off because it adapts to you being super active, right? So yeah, temperature plays a role too. What if it's 30 degrees versus 100 degrees, right? Like this, I probably had a question. I got you, Megan. I will keep that in a second. Boom. So temperature plays a role. So many things play a role in our sweat. So sweat is not a good indicator of how much fat we're burning or how many calories we're burning, okay? And so remember that, let me see if I'm gonna overstep another question real quick. Boom, no. So remember that when our metabolism is burning somewhere between some creatine, some carbs and some sugars, some fats, and sometimes in extreme circumstances, some proteins. All right. So that's kind of where your body pulls energy from. And depending on the intensity of exercise, depends on how much of one versus the other we're pulling, but we never stop pulling from any of them. We are constantly pulling some, right? There's like 3 or 4 wheels turning and they're constantly turning, but sometimes one turns faster than another. Okay. So keep that in mind as well. So when we want to burn more fat specifically, the goal is to actually work harder. We have to work harder at a higher intensity when we want to burn more overall fat. When we want to burn a higher percentage of fat, but not necessarily a higher overall number of fat, we could go on a low intensity like a walk, right? Because it's not very intense. I don't need to pull from creatine. I don't need to pull from carbs. I don't need to pull from protein. I can pretty much do that intensity with just fat. Okay, and so I'm walking, but I'm not burning a lot of it, but of my 10 calories that I'm burning, probably 9 of it is coming just from fats. But I could burn 100 by running, and 80 of those calories could be coming from fat, right? So burn 9 calories from fat or burn 80, take your pick. But 9 out of 10 is way bigger than 80 out of 100, right? So it's 90% versus the 80%. So it's kind of confusing with overall fat versus the percentage of fat. And so that is why companies and supplement companies specifically love to throw percentages at you. This supplement burns 40% more fat than the other supplement, right? And then the percentage is like, well, that's not really a lot because it only burned like 2 calories. So 40% of 2 calories is like 0.8 calories. So now we're only burning 2.8 calories from fat, right? And so percentages are an easy way for people to manipulate data and to get you to think that it's a big number, and it's not, okay? So keep that in mind as well. So if we do not use sweat as a good indicator of are we burning fat, if we want to burn more overall fat, we want to work harder, okay? Do bigger sweat glands make you sweat more? Yeah. I don't. Remember that sweating doesn't cool you down. The evaporation of sweat cools you down. Okay, that is why 80 degrees in Colorado and 80 degrees in Houston, Texas are very different 80 degrees, right? Colorado is dry and Houston is humid. Okay, it's the same 80 degrees, but we can't evaporate our sweat in Houston because the air is also very wet. And so our water from our skin has nowhere to go. Whereas in Colorado, the air is dry, so it's easier to evaporate. Fun fact, if you go to a gym, that is why almost all cardio machines have fans on them now. The fans don't cool you down. The fans help evaporate your sweat by blowing air at it. All right, that's what the fans are for. That is also why people wear sweatsuits. They think they're burning more calories and staying hotter and all this stuff by not having their sweat evaporate, because they're wearing a sweatsuit. So the sweat can't go anywhere. So since the sweat can't go anywhere, our temperature stays higher. And if we stay higher, then we're going to burn more calories. Same concept with a sauna. But the actual how much more calories are we going to burn from wearing a sweatsuit? How many more calories are we going to burn by sitting in the sauna? Not that much, a little bit. So is it worth your money? Maybe. Or could you just not eat McDonald's tonight and do the same amount, right? Burn the same amount of calories, all right? So keep that in mind as well. So sweat is not a good indicator. Evaporation of sweat cools us down. The more active, the more fit we are, the more we will sweat. Our sweat glands can hypertrophy. They can expand and grow because our body will get better at cooling itself down, all righty? And so that is a good thing. It's a good thing. All right. What number is this? 1, 2, 3. Number 4. Number 4. This is a good one. This is a good one. And I know some of y'all believe it. So speak the truth to me. Speak the truth. You can burn fat from specific regions of the body by exercising those areas. You can burn fat. False. So what that means is if I did 1,000 sit-ups a day, I would target belly fat. If I did 1,000 bicep curls a day, I would target bicep fat. If I did 100 push-ups, 1,000 push-ups a day, I would target chest fat, right? True or false? Whatever. I know you guys believe this. Everybody's saying false. You big liars. You know it was true. I love it. That's false. Fat cells and muscle cells don't communicate. All right. I like my chest fat. I know, Brand, right? So fat cells and muscle cells do not communicate. They don't talk to one another, and they also can't directly convert into the other one. So we can't just take fat and convert it into muscle. We also can't take muscle and just convert it into fat in the same area. Remember that where we pull energy from is 100% based off of your genetics. That's why people store fat differently. That's why everyone has a different shape. That's why everyone, some people have toned arms or toned legs or toned core or a toned back or a toned chest or whatever the case may be. Everyone is different, and that is genetically predisposition to you. I think Natasha is reading about epigenetic factors. It's based off of genetics, okay? So if I'm doing sit-ups and I'm not genetically designed to pull fat from my stomach because I don't know, my parents just didn't do it very well either. I'm going to pull energy from wherever in the body is easiest for my body to pull it from. And it is not always the stomach. Maybe it's my legs. Maybe it's my calves. I have tiny calves. So maybe while I'm doing all these push-ups, my calves are also getting smaller. How terrible is that? Life sucks. All right. So we pull energy based off of where we are genetically predispositioned to pull it from. And we also store energy where we are genetically predispositioned to pull it and store it, right? So someone made a great post. I forget who it was, one of my buddies. And they said, hey, if you can't control where you store fat, what makes you think you can control how to target fat? Right? If you can't eat a cheeseburger and say, cheeseburger, go right to my butt because I want a big old booty, but you get a big gut instead, what makes you think that you can target your gut with exercise or with a diet, right? A lot of people say, oh, eat avocados because it's going to help burn fat in your midsection. No, it's not. Like avocado, you think avocados know where your midsection is? Like absolutely, it doesn't have a brain. And so it's all based off of genetics, all righty? I'm sorry, Natasha. Okay, some of us have good genetics, some of us have bad genetics. Some of us would love to have other people's genetics, good or bad. So just be grateful with what you got. All right. We cannot target body fat by just doing exercise to that certain area. Now, what we can do by exercising that certain area is create more muscle tone. And then if we follow a nutrition plan that helps us lose overall body fat, we will then therefore be able to see more of that muscle tone, right? So we can always create a bigger muscle, stronger muscle, more muscle tone. However, whether we're going to be able to see that pop through or not is going to be based off of our nutrition, which is going to help us stay in a caloric deficit so we can kind of burn more fat overall. And then hopefully one day we'll be able to see the muscle tone in that area. Okay, so I love it. I love it. I love it. All righty, let me see. Coming up next. All right, this is probably a good one for us. Losing weight. Losing weight is extremely difficult. Losing weight is extremely difficult. True or false? True or false? Natasha, stop it. Depends on the person.
Difficult, yes. Complicated, no.
Depends on the person, and difficult, yes. Complicated, no. That's a good question. That's a good answer.
I would say in the beginning of when I started, it was difficult, but then I figured out that it's not that difficult.
Gotcha. Okay, complicated. So maybe our perception of weight loss is very difficult, but actual weight loss is not that difficult. So is it difficult? Yes, because it's hard to do what we need to do to lose weight. Is the actual equation of weight loss difficult? No, it's very simple. It's very easy. Eat less calories, you'll lose weight. That is very simple. It is not difficult at all. If you think it's difficult at all, watch this show, Naked and Afraid. Those fools are losing 20 to 30 pounds in just a couple of days because they're not eating anything. All righty. Calories in versus calories out is the cure-all, the king, the queen. That dictates whether we lose weight or gain weight, even if we have medical conditions, even if we have hormonal imbalances. It just changes the equation. It just pushes your start line a little bit further back. So you have, maybe these people have an unfair advantage and you're kind of at a setback because of hormones or because of, genetic dispositions, whatever the case may be. But the equation stays the same. Burn more calories than you eat and you will lose weight. Eat more calories than you burn and you will gain weight. So is losing weight extremely difficult? No. The practice of losing weight is. The application of losing weight is. Can we stop eating? That is hard. Food drives social behaviors. It drives relationships. It drives meetings. How many of you guys have meetings with companies and it's like there's like snacks on the table, or it is literally a lunch meeting or a dinner meeting? Happens all the time, right? There's food everywhere. And so it's a great thing that we live in a first world country, but if we were in a different country, food is not everywhere, right? And so keep that in mind as well. So the only reason why weight loss is difficult is due to the application of it. Weight loss is actually fairly simple. Now, what is extremely difficult is keeping off the weight that we lose. That is extremely difficult because of our mindset, right? And so, you know, I've been having a lot of calls with you guys, loving the calls. If you haven't scheduled your calls yet, schedule it. And we talk about if I lose 50 pounds, let's say I'm 200 pounds and I lose 50 and now I'm 150 pounds. I have to act like a 150-pound person for the rest of my life. The moment that I go back to acting like I'm 200 pounds, I will then therefore go back to being 200 pounds, okay? When you lose 50 pounds, you have to maintain that lifestyle forever. That's the hard part. And so remember, and it goes the same way if we're still 200 pounds. If we're 200 pounds and I want to be 150 pounds, I need to act like I want to be 150 pounds. I need to do what 150-pound people do. I need to do what people who are successful with their weight transformation, right? So Lauren's, you know, about 100 pounds down. Look at Lauren's new lifestyle. She's working out every day. She's meal prepping, eating all of her good stuff. She has a way different relationship with exercise and nutrition than she did 100 pounds ago. So we have to be ready to jump into this new you, and we have to maintain it, right? And so it's very tough for us to maintain it because a lot of us are losing weight really fast and we don't have time to really adapt our life, right? So that's where all these fad companies are saying, hey, lose 20 pounds in 20 days. That's great, but you didn't learn anything. You didn't learn how to be 20 pounds lighter. So once you hit your goal weight, you're just gonna go back to the old you because you didn't learn anything. And since you didn't learn anything, you're just going to gain that weight right back. And then you have to go back to the company and you pay them again, and then you lose the weight, and then you gain it back. And then you pay them again, and then you lose the weight, and then you gain it back. And then you pay them again, right? It's just a cycle over and over and over again. You have to be ready to be the new you. You have to be ready to prioritize your nutrition, prioritize your workouts, or you will always gain the weight back. So, moral of the story, weight loss is very simple. The application of weight loss and the maintenance of weight loss is very, very hard. Okay, but the equation of weight loss is actually very, very simple. All righty. I know we don't like to accept it. We like to think that it's hard, but it's not. It's pretty simple. I like it. Moving right along. Moving right along. Let me see. I gotta pick some good ones. I already gave you that answer. Okay, let's see if you were paying attention. I already gave you the answer. See if you're paying attention. Performing cardio at a low rather than a high intensity promotes greater fat loss. Performing cardio at a low intensity rather than a higher intensity promotes greater fat loss. True or false? Remember what we just talked about, percentages and actuals, percentages and totals. True or false? If we exercise at a lower intensity, do we listen to the question. Listen to the question, Bren. If we, okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, that's a good answer. Okay. If we do cardio at a lower intensity rather than a higher intensity, does it promote greater fat loss? And Bren said percentage-wise, yes. Everyone who said false, I hope it's because you know that for the overall amount of fat loss, it is false. But to Bren's point, from a percentage-wise, it is true, right? So again, 90% of 10 calories is very different than 50% of 100 calories, right? So you're like, oh, let's burn 50%. I'll take the 90. But 90% of 10 is only 9 calories. But 50% of 100 is 50 calories. So if we exercise at a higher intensity, we will burn overall more calories coming from carbs, coming from fats, coming from creatine, coming from protein, but we will also burn way more fat overall as well. But from a percentage standpoint, our percentage of fat loss might be less, but the overall amount might be more. So just a rule of thumb, if you want to lose more weight, if you want to lose more fat, work harder, all right? Larger amounts of overall, larger amounts of overall calories is the goal. That's the goal. Okay, next question. Ooh, aerobic exercise, cardio, suppresses your appetite. Cardio suppresses your appetite. False. I feel sick. True, I feel sick after cardio. Natasha, what kind of cardio are you doing? You feel sick after you go on your hikes? That's cardio. That's when I talk about low intensity cardio or aerobic training, I'm talking about like walking, hiking, going on a casual bike stroll, right? Hard to tell I'm always hungry. I love it. I love it. So it is false, all right? Aerobic training does not suppress your appetite. Now, and again, we're talking about moderate to low intensity, okay? Higher intensity exercise can suppress your appetite due to epinephrine. So epinephrine is your fight or flight, right? Epinephrine and norepinephrine. Epinephrine acts on your muscles, norepinephrine acts on your nervous system. So that's kind of the way they do the exact same thing, but just in two different areas of the body. When norepinephrine and epinephrine are present, hunger hormones and insulin go away, right? They're gone, boom. Now, when epinephrine and norepinephrine come back, or when norepinephrine and epinephrine go away, our hunger hormones and our insulin can come back into the equation, right? So they can't really be present at the same time. So with low intensity aerobic or cardio training, we don't have very much epinephrine or norepinephrine present. Now, what is something that mimics epinephrine? That would be caffeine. Caffeine is an appetite suppressant. It cranks up your heart rate. It acts on the muscle tissue. It acts on the nervous system, right? And so when caffeine is present, our insulin and our hunger hormones cannot be present as well, okay? So it acts just like epinephrine and norepinephrine caffeine does. So if you're going for a walk or a jog or a hike, drinking an energy drink, drinking pre-workout, you might be able to suppress your appetite due to the caffeine, but the exercise in itself does not, all right? So caffeine is the weird thing that has it can do a lot of different things in the body. But one of them is it can suppress your appetite. So that's why if people stop drinking energy drinks or stop drinking coffee, a lot of us will gain weight because we are used to suppressing our appetite so much, okay? So very interesting fun fact, and that is why almost all weight loss supplements, fat burners, etc., have caffeine in them. Okay, that is why it's able to say speeds up your metabolism. That's why it's able to say reduces your appetite. It's because of caffeine. Caffeine is so cheap. All right, fat burners are so expensive. Don't know why. All right, so that's why all those weight loss pills have speed in them. Yeah, and there's some things. I forget the chemical. There was another chemical and it got banned. It was like have you ever seen, and maybe Kylie knows, but there was a pre-workout called Jack 3D. And it was like 5 to 8 years old. It was called Jack 3D. It got banned because of this accelerant that was like 10 times more potent than caffeine was killing people. And it was in a pre-workout. Fun fact, when I was in Afghanistan, I would mix my Jack 3D with an energy drink. That's how crazy I was when I was, it was like phentermine. It was like something phentermine. There's another name for it as well, but it was kind of, I'll Google it. I'll let you guys know. And so it's getting banned out of all these fat burners, out of all these pre-workouts and stuff like that. So it's so funny. So if you're about the age of 30, 35, and you've been experiencing or playing around with caffeine for a while, we always have a joke like they just don't make pre-workouts like they used to, right? Because they're literally putting cocaine in in pre-workouts, and people were dying. And so really funny. We talked about that girl, right? We talked about her last week, I think, actually, if you want to watch the recording, right? Is that the girl who's getting sued right now, Kylie? No? Who's that? Anna Smith. Who's that? Little blue speckled pills. Yeah, the fen thing. Yeah. And that's also why when you see companies also say new formula, it's probably because one of the chemicals has gotten banned. That's probably why, not because they found some fancy new thing. Oh, the one who died from it. Oh, I don't know her. Didn't know that. Crazy. All right, moving right along. Let's do like one more, and then I'll let you guys get out of here. Ooh, this is a good one. Let me see if I can find another one. Ooh. I got two. All right, we got two more. These are gonna be awesome. She was married to the 100-year-old billionaire. Wow. All right. Cool. Okay. True or false? All the pills, potions, and powders being rammed down the throats, and this is in my textbook, by the way, being rammed down the throats of unworried customers and consumers with promises of bigger muscles are just plain garbage and do not work. That was a long question. So all the pills, potions, and powders being rammed down the throats of unworried consumers and customers with promises of bigger muscles are just plain garbage and do not work. True. I love it. I love it. The explanation on this is so funny. Beautiful. Do we have any falses? Anybody believe all these crazy claims that are on the front of nutrition labels or in these crazy ads or commercials that we're seeing? Does anybody really believe them? If you do, which ones? I'd love to hear about them and whatnot. So there is no, it says there is no magic bullet. That's the first sentence. There is no magic bullet. That is not to say that some of the substances that are currently on the market are not effective, but usually the claims are just outrageous and don't ever actually go according to their claims. Sometimes, however, if you look past the hype, and you will find a pretty good worthwhile supplement. So AKA there are good supplements out there, but the ones that are claiming all of these amazing results are probably not true. If you ask your MLM friend for the research behind their products claims, they do get really mad. Yeah, if you ask someone who's promoting like a fat loss supplement or a muscle building supplement, you say, hey, tell me why, right? Why does that work? They get offended like fast. They'll either get offended or they'll just start cramming like success stories down your throat. Like, look at this person, look at this person, look at this person, but they'll never actually answer your question of like, how does it work? Why does it work? Things like that. And to Brent's point, you still have to put in the work, right? There's no magic pill. You still have to put in the work. And so a couple things to consider is there's 4 things that they wrote in here. Are you going to have to use them for a really long time? Are they very expensive? Does the cost justify the small amount of gains that they may produce? And is there sufficient data to support the claims made by the manufacturer? Okay, that is the whole thing behind my CLA post today was, is the data there that shows CLA burns fat? Sure. Is there enough data for these MLM companies to say, this is going to help you burn so much fat, lose so much weight, shrink your fat cells, blah, 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 blah? No. Right there, that data is not there. And a lot of times it also comes with, oh, also buy this other product as well. You can't just take the CLA product. You also got to buy this one because they like work together some way, somehow. Oh, and you also have to partner it with a healthy nutrition plan. Oh, and then you also have to partner it with exercise, right? So you're like, well, dude, I should have just eaten healthy and exercised on my own. I didn't need to buy your $40 bottle of pills or $50 bottle of pills. I could have just done this without it, right? So am I gonna have to do it for a long time? So a lot of times we'll say, hey, give it 90 days. Give it 90 days, see how you feel. Well, they just created a 3-month long customer, right? And so you have to get a subscription or you have to keep, put it on auto delivery, whatever the case may be. So are we gonna have to use it for a long time? Are they very expensive? Does the cost outweigh the small gains that you might have from it? And then is there sufficient data to support the claims being made? All righty. Is weight loss surgery considered a quick fix, or does that just jumpstart the calories in versus the calories out burn equation? Good question. There is a lot of different weight loss surgeries out there. So let's just talk about maybe like a lap band or what do they call it? The sleeve, right? What that does is that just doesn't allow you to eat that much food. It literally stops you from eating because you feel so full, right? So when a lot of people do these bariatric surgeries or weight loss surgeries, they have to be monitored pretty closely by their doctors and their registered dietitians, because since we're eating so little, we're also probably deficient in a lot of vitamins and minerals, okay? And so they They counter that by giving them a bunch of pills. Right after surgery, you got to take this pill, this pill, this pill 14 times a day. You've got to eat this first, right? So a lot of times the surgery and the registered dietitians and stuff will say, get your protein in first, worry about the rest later. And so that's why we go pretty much low carb, because if there is a if there's a macro that we need to skip, it would be carbs, right? We don't need carbs. Your body can create carbs through something called gluconeogenesis. And so we can't really we can create fats, we can convert things into fat, but not as easily as we can do it, or easier, or not as easy as we can do it with carbs. So we don't necessarily need carbs, we need proteins, we need fats. And so a lot of people who have those surgeries have to be monitored by a registered dietitian, have to be on medications for a while as well. And they need to be checked on. In the beginning, it's of course more frequently every 3 months, every 6 months, then every year, and then maybe every 2 to 3 years. And so it's not necessarily a jump start, it's just a limiter, it's just a restrictor. I literally can't eat anymore or I'll explode, right? I feel sick to my stomach. And so since I'm eating less calories, because I'm forced to eat less calories because I don't have the size of the stomach that I used to, or I have a lap band around it so it can't get through this band, because there's like a rubber band around my GI system, and the food can't get through, I'm now full. It feels almost like I have acid reflux because it's just sitting there, it's not going anywhere. So I physically can't eat anymore. So tummy tuck, things like that. So yeah, so tummy tuck is a little bit differently, right? Having skin surgery, a little bit different. So you would have to lose excess amount of weight in order for you to get approved for the surgeries for a skin surgery. And I think you also have to maintain a certain BMI percentage or a certain BMI number as well for the doctor to say, okay, I will perform a weight loss surgery, or I will perform a skin surgery on you, because you're probably not going to gain it back, right? There's no point to pay for a $5,000 tummy tuck or $8,000 skin surgery if you're just more than likely going to gain that weight back. It's not worth it. It's also dangerous, right? And so then what about cryotherapy, right? So funny story, while I was doing this certification, cryotherapy wasn't even a thing 10, 12 years ago, okay? And I don't know what chapter it is, but we learned about cryotherapy, of cold therapy, and how beneficial it is. And I remember 19-year-old Joseph, I was like, you know what? Why do we have saunas and gyms? We should have freezers. And lo and behold, like 5 years later, cryotherapies are everywhere. I was so mad. That was my idea. I didn't tell anybody about it, but it was my idea. So cryotherapy is pretty awesome. The benefits to cold therapy outweigh the benefits from hot therapy, from a caloric expenditure and from a pain standpoint. So that's why cryotherapy is so beneficial. Is can we burn a massive amount of calories by shivering our butt off? Absolutely. That's why northern states are not as fat as southern states. Southern states are fat for a reason, because heat doesn't burn that many calories, which is why the sauna doesn't burn that many calories. And I know people who sit in the sauna like for hours, and I'm like, you still haven't lost very much weight, right? But cryotherapy a little bit different. And then from a pain standpoint as well, we know that cold therapy can decrease pain a lot better than hot therapy can, okay? Because it's literally numbing you. So I love cryotherapy. Do I love it enough to like use it to help me lose weight? No. I would never go to a cryotherapy session every day to burn, an extra 300 calories. It's also really expensive. I can't afford it. I'm kind of poor. But maybe if I could afford it, I would go. Maybe. I don't know. It's a good question. But I wouldn't use it for weight loss, right? I would take care of my pyramid first. I'd take care of my pyramid. If I wanted to add in cryotherapy on the side, then totally do it. So a lot of times people who do like skin surgeries and tummy tucks and even bariatric surgeries, they don't understand that they have to change their eating habits. Remember, if you lose 100 pounds, you have to act like you're 100 pounds less or you will gain it back, alrighty? They have vitamin and electrolyte problems as well, people who do those surgeries. She undid the surgery in 6 months, right? It's so crazy, wasting thousands of dollars for it to go to waste in just a couple months. It's so crazy. A lot of patients that had the surgery, they have hair loss, and they have vitamin. Yeah, so that's what I was saying is when they get these bariatric surgeries and done, they have to be closely monitored. And some of the side effects are hair loss, vitamin deficiency, and stuff like that. Sona Bello, she's back to what she did, $10,000 down the drain. So crazy. Did band 10K, didn't change her lifestyle. So now she's back to what she's doing with a bunch of credit card debt. So crazy. Military medicine. Here I thought Southerners are fat because we fry. We do fry everything, Megan. That's also very true. But temperature does play a role. Temperature really does play a role. Don't get me started on cool sculpting. Sculpt your arm like that. 30,000. Oh, 30,000. Love it. Okay, we got one more and then we'll get out of here. We're a little over time. But this is a good one. Dietitians, medical doctors, and chiropractors are your best bet for good, sound nutritional advice. Ooh, later, Victoria. Dietitians.
False, and I'm a nurse.
Ooh, I like it. Dietitians, medical doctors, and chiropractors are your best bet for good, sound nutrition advice. Oh my goodness. If I had $1 for every time I had to argue with your doctor or argue with you about what your doctor said, I wouldn't even need a business anymore. I'd be rich. I love it. Cool. Love it. So yeah, so no, not true, right? It says in here, some of them are extremely conservative and some are concerned with your health. And so, but they don't understand the full effect of the advice that they're giving because they're not trained in it, okay? So very conservative approaches, but the last sentence says, nonetheless, you're better going to get their information from an uneducated gym bro, says it in the book, right? But so a lot of times, we want to trust our doctors, we want to trust our chiropractors and stuff like that. But a lot of times they get attached to maybe one thing, right? And so let's say you have diabetes, right? Or you have a blood sugar issue. And the first thing they just say is, you need to do keto, right? Okay, that's pretty extreme. We don't necessarily need to do keto. And maybe you're not ready mentally to do keto either. And so now you're put in this position of the doctor told me to do it. And so I think I need to do it, but I also know that mentally I'm not ready. So how is going to be that relationship with carbs? It's going to be very detrimental. It's going to be carbs are the bad guy. Carbs are causing me to die. Carbs are the root of all evil, right? And they're not, right? Even if you have diabetes, you still don't need to be on keto. We have tons of diabetic clients on here, and none of them are on keto, right? Not a single one of them. Everyone has at least 20% or more of carbs coming from their overall calories, and keto is 5% or less. So, and again, we have a lot of diabetics on here. Number one. Number two, depending on the medications you're on, which is why we asked that question in your questionnaire, depending on the medications you're on, we might have to manipulate your calories or your macros a certain way. So let's say you are a diabetic, you are on a blood sugar medicine or insulin or things like that, and I give you a low carb plan, and you go into hypoglycemia, meaning low blood sugar, and you pass out or you faint or you have some sort of other medical issue, I'm now responsible. Right. And so I caused that. And so we have to have a very healthy relationship with, okay, I am diabetic, but maybe my blood sugar is controlled due to the medicine already. And so I really don't need a low carb plan at all because the medicine is doing its job. Right. And so we now play around, we stay up to date with you guys of, hey, letting us know how your blood sugar is doing, letting us know how your labs are doing and things like that. Can we change your plan? Or can we change your medication? And the goal is to change your medication, right? Get off the medication, reduce your amounts and quantities and stuff like that. And so it's a very complex situation. It is not you have diabetes, go do keto. You have high cholesterol, go do paleo. You have weight loss issues or whatever the case may be, go do Whole30. It is not that simple. And that's what doctors just throw out. So one of our goals, and Deidre's been working on it really well, is partnering up with doctors. We have a whole bunch of brochures. So if you're in the San Antonio area, and you want to fax over FAD's brochure to maybe give to your doctor's office, or maybe work for an office that could use some brochures, let us know. We can meet up and we can give you guys some brochures to drop off, or I can ship them to you if you're in Houston or wherever else you're at. But so that's kind of our goal this year, is to just like kind of take that weight off of some of our medical providers, because as a patient, we expect them to know everything. I know we do, right? It's my doctor, like they know everything. And so we don't want to put that pressure on them. So we want to take away some of that pressure and just say, hey, If you have a patient who is struggling with this or that, then just refer them to us and we can handle it through the nutrition and create that partnership with them. All righty. So very fun day, all done. I'll stop the recording so you can misbehave.